I'm Mackenzie Hawkins, Outreach and Media Specialist from Spalding Education. Thank you for taking the time to meet with us today so we can tell you a little bit more about Spalding Education and the Writing Road to Reading program. I'd like to start by sharing a few pieces of information that I think set us apart from any other program. First, the first 1,000 words entered in students' Spalding vocabulary notebooks account for 85% of the most frequently used words in spelling and reading. Second, Spalding instruction always begins with teaching all of the speech sounds of the vowels and consonants, which enables children to read regular and irregular words rapidly. And lastly, once students learn all 70 phonograms and rules, they can use this knowledge to sound out and spell most unfamiliar words. I've been working in the educational field for 14 years and have been using the Spalding Method for 13 of those years. Throughout that time, I've noticed children in special and regular education classrooms experience great successes with reading, comprehension, decoding, spelling, and writing, exceeding far above the minimum grade standards at grade level. I'd like to take the time to start out and tell you how our program works, talk about some technological advancements, as well as show you how Spalding is correlating with the Common Core Ready standards. Let's start with how the program works. The Writing Road to Reading program is a total language arts approach because it explicitly teaches spelling, writing, speaking, listening, and reading comprehension with interactive and multisensory instruction. Spalding's philosophy and time-tested methodology are the premise of our program. During the teacher training course, we discuss the importance of a child-centered approach where we can focus on the child's well-being so students are in a comfortable environment and their full attention can be on instruction. We also talk about the importance of having high expectations. Rigorous objectives in the teacher's guide prove our philosophy. We talk about the importance of self-reflection as well to enhance instruction, which in turn increases student achievement. Spalding methodology provides a framework for all Spalding lessons. Explicit, multisensory, interactive, and sequential lessons all help students retain the skill-based information at a faster rate. Diagnostic instruction allows teachers to differentiate their instruction to meet the needs of all of the students during and after a lesson. The philosophy and methodology was used to create the Spalding objectives in the teacher's guides. Let's take a look at the spelling, writing, and reading objectives. We'll start with spelling. Spalding includes systematic phonics, which is linking sounds and letters with the printed words. Mrs. Spalding named the symbols that represent sounds phonograms, phono for sound and gram for writing. Spalding teaches 70 letters and letter combinations that represent the common speech sounds. Here's an example. The back of the card gives the teachers the sounds the phonograms make, as well as the sample words and instructional tips. The phonogram sounds are listed and practiced in order of frequency. For example, each time a student reads a word with the phonogram A in it, they will first read the word using the first sound, A. If that doesn't work, they'll try the second sound, A. And if that still doesn't work, then they will finally read the word with the final sound of A, Ah. Let's look at a sample of a kindergarten teacher's guide to talk more about the spelling objectives. The teacher's guide lesson begins with spelling because it is a sub-skill of reading and writing. Students use the skills they learn in spelling to improve their vocabulary and become better readers. Notice Spalding starts with phonemic awareness. We all know that failure to understand phonemic awareness is a primary cause for reading difficulties. So these are the first objectives in our kindergarten and first grade guides. Next, we move on to systematic phonics with handwriting. Phonogram sounds are taught along with letter formation, handwriting. The child hears, sees, writes, and reads the phonograms, activating 4 sensory pathways, making our instruction multisensory. Our program is called the Writing Road to Reading because teaching handwriting and written spelling before reading from books is fundamental. The techniques of easy, legible, and neat handwriting are taught using phonograms for daily handwriting instruction. Here's an example of the letter features as well as the manuscript handwriting. Spalding uses reference points on a clock and 6-letter features to help students form their letters. Any letter can be made by using a combination of these 6-letter features. Now let's take a look at another research-based component, high-frequency vocabulary. Spalding's spelling vocabulary word list consists of more than 2,300 high-frequency words. Students analyze these words for phonograms and markings that help them to pronounce and spell words correctly. They then read the words they've just analyzed for spelling and reading to build decoding and fluency skills. I just said mark the words and read for spelling and reading, so let's take a minute to talk about what that means. Mrs. Spalding developed a unique marking system that helps children to decode words. For example, look at the word chain. Students underline any multi-letter phonograms in the word. This helps them to quickly identify phonograms in words, so they are a useful tool for pronouncing and decoding. And a vowel at the end of a syllable is underlined to show it usually says its name, like in the words me and go. One more example shows a tiny number placed above the phonogram if the sound is not its first sound. The phonogram O says ah, o, oo. And in the word do, we hear the third sound, so we write a 3 above it. The phonogram S says s, z. And in the word is, we hear the second sound, so we write a 2 above it. This unique marking system connects speech sounds to print. Students utilize the marking system when they're analyzing high-frequency words in their spelling and vocabulary notebook. This is an example of a spelling vocabulary notebook. After 45 phonograms are introduced, children say and write high-frequency words from dictation in a primary or intermediate notebook. This means they segment the spoken words, then blend phonograms into high-frequency words. For example, if the word is now, students would segment the word ow, analyze the word for any phonograms or rules that apply to the word, like our multi-letter phonogram ow, and then blend the word now. After students write their spelling vocabulary words in their notebook, they then read those words in 2 ways. Reading the words for spelling trains the brain to process words sequentially for spelling and writing. Reading whole words practices rapid word recognition. Having children read words 2 ways every day improves decoding and automatic word recognition, which enhances fluency while they're reading books. Here's a quick view of the spelling lesson in action. You can see videos of Spalding in action on our YouTube channel. Just search the Spalding Method. Once students have analyzed words in the spelling lesson, they then use those words to develop vocabulary in the writing lesson. In the writing lesson, the students study words in a variety of ways, including parts of speech, prefixes, suffixes, base and word roots, and language rules that affect the spelling of words. They then use that information to write compositions. The word study enhances children's vocabulary development and improves comprehension. Let's look at an example from our teacher's guide. Here's an example of the 4th grade writing objectives in our teacher's guide. Writing objective number 1 is the same each week. This important writing objective practices the usage and meaning of any unfamiliar spelling and vocabulary word. So the same words the students just practiced in their spelling lesson are now being applied in their writing lesson. Next, students focus on an additional writing objective each day. From our example, you'll notice this week they're being introduced or reviewed to prepositional phrases, adjective prepositional phrases, suffixes like ation and shun or al, as well as quotation marks. These objectives are spiraled back into lessons throughout the year, so the students have continued practice of these objectives. Another feature in the teacher's guides are the tip boxes on the right side. When there is a little red arrow next to the objective, it signals to the teacher that there is a tip to help them execute the objective effectively. The final few writing objectives each week focus on compositions. Composition practice through the writing process is an objective each week. Spalding correlates the literature the students are reading with the writing assignments to add more depth to the writing assignments and analysis of the text. As you just saw in the writing objectives, Spalding has integrated the writing and reading objectives as much as possible. We have all heard about the importance of writing about what we read to help with analysis of the text and comprehension. And Spalding does that as much as possible throughout the grade levels. This is a 4th grade example. Notice in weeks 7 and 8, the 4th graders will be reading My Brother Martin and Martin Luther King Day. They will then, with their writing objectives, compare and contrast first and second hand accounts and write an opinion paragraph of those first and second accounts. In weeks 13 to 14, they're reading deserts and tropical rainforests, as well as creating organizers as they're reading. And then in the writing objectives, they're comparing and contrasting deserts and tropical rainforests using the organizers they have just created in the reading objectives. Or down in week 16, 17, and 18, they'll be reading Tango, The Tale of an Island Dog. They'll then write in weeks 18 and 19 an opinion for who Tango should live with, an informative summary, and a persuasive argumentative paragraph about Tango. They'll also be writing a multi-paragraph informative on deserts and rainforests. After the writing objectives and the teacher's guides, the teachers will then find the reading objectives. The reading lessons consist of 3 basic parts: text structure, text comprehension strategies using the 5 mental actions, and literary appreciation. The first part is text structure. Text structure is a prerequisite skill for comprehension. Identifying the 3 types of text enables students to immediately focus attention on pertinent elements, like topic and facts for an informative, or plot and characters for a narrative. Text structure knowledge also helps students organize their thoughts while composing narratives, informatives, and informative narratives. These posters give students a visual aid for the 3 types of text. The second part of the reading lesson is comprehension. Metacognition, thinking about your thinking, and Spalding's 5 mental action, which are comprehension strategies, are explicitly taught. The final part of the reading lesson is literary appreciation and fluency. Kindergarten and 1st grade use Spalding created readers, and 2nd through 6th grade use a variety of children's literature and informational text throughout these objectives. These kindergarten and 1st grade readers are aligned with the Spalding Teacher's Guide. These beginning readers are especially designed so children can practice using phonograms they have already learned. This sample is from Salmon Puff, a kindergarten reader that is read to develop fluent and expressive reading by the students in week 10 of kindergarten. Grade levels 2 through 6 use literature and informational text for their reading objectives. This literature was carefully selected. We use a range of text types. Like in literature, we use folk tales, legends, historical fiction, or informational texts where we use biographies, autobiographies, and content areas. We also considered range and lexile measures and grade equivalency. Literature and informational text starts at grade level and increases 2 grades by the end of the grade level teacher's guide. Common Core suggests that teachers use a balance of informational text and literature. The quote on the top of the page is pulled directly from the Park frameworks. Spalding kept that in mind while selecting books for the reading objectives. Take a second and look at the example of 3rd grade text. As I mentioned, the Spalding methodology includes diagnostic instruction. Being a diagnostic teacher takes part during the lesson so the teacher can monitor, adjust, and differentiate instruction to meet the needs of all his or her students. And then the diagnostic teacher continues to focus on the student's progress after the lesson. Spalding has tools available to help teachers assess and track their students' growth and provide intervention where needed. This highly effective component can be done with paper and pencil at this time. However, we are working on moving a few of our assessments to online assessments, where teachers can track growth, analyze data, and progress monitor. We also plan to have a component where teachers have access to sample lessons, scripts, and models they can utilize if their students need more help in a certain area. We are already in the process of making our assessments available online, and our goal is to have this project completed by the winter of 2015. Here are some of the assessments we use to track growth. Keep in mind that these assessment tools are already available for teachers in the standard paper-pencil method and will be online soon. We also have a Spalding Phonograms app that we have found to be very useful for students. This app introduces phonograms and practices oral phonogram reviews and written phonogram reviews. The final piece of information I'd like to share with you today is how the Writing Road to Reading program correlates with the Common Core Ready standards. Spalding's curriculum has been in place for over 50 years. Once we started analyzing our objectives to college and career ready standards, we realized Spalding Teacher Guide objectives were about 90% already in place. As we reviewed our objectives, we ensured that students gained adequate exposure to a range of texts and tasks or objectives. Rigor was attained as students read and analyzed increasingly complex texts throughout the grade levels. This is an example of a college and career ready standard, so you can see how it progresses through the grade levels. Spalding requires students to cite evidence and support their thinking throughout the objectives. Here's another college and career ready standard, so you can see the progression as we go through grade levels. Here's a snapshot of what our teacher-friendly correlations look like. They are available online to download. We looked at the Spalding objectives and correlated any Common Core Ready standards to which it applied. As you can see with some of the objectives, we were able to cover quite a few standards. I would also like to point out one more thing before we move on from this slide. The Spalding program is a complete language arts program. Notice if a school was to only do the spelling component of our program, that school would not be meeting all of the requirements for Common Core Ready standards. After listening to this presentation and reviewing Spalding products, I hope you will choose Spalding for your students. You'll find each year's summary report and final report about a recent 4-year study completed by Arizona State University on our website. However, I'll briefly summarize some of the main points. This project was initiated in 2006 and 2007 to validate the effectiveness of Spalding's Writing Road to Reading in teaching reading to children from varied backgrounds who attend different types of schools. 11 diverse Arizona schools were involved in a study of K-3 classrooms consisting of over 1,000 students each year. Control and experimental schools were carefully matched on socioeconomic status, class size, race, ethnicity, gender, and geography. Dibble's cut scores, the minimum requirements for meeting the standards, identify children at risk. At the beginning of 3rd grade, the cut score is 77. Spalding students' average cut score, including those new to Spalding, were 96.99. The longitudinal students, those students in the study since kindergarten, scored 104.29. And the control student average did not meet the Dibble's cut score defined. Notice by the end of the year, both Spalding groups exceeded the cut score and the control students continued to fall behind. I hope you enjoyed this introduction to the Spalding method and can see how it can benefit your students and school. We believe the Spalding method is the most effective curriculum for teaching your students how to spell, write, and read.